You think being a good person protects you. You think staying kind, staying humble, staying quiet keeps you safe. But while you're busy being agreeable, the world is carving you up and handing out the pieces to people who understood the game before you even knew there was one. The moment you need someone's approval, you lose. The moment you flinch at silence, you lose. The moment you explain yourself to someone who never asked in good faith, you have already surrendered. And the worst part? You did it with a smile. You are being controlled right now. Not by governments. Not by corporations. By your own psychology. By the part of you that was conditioned to be palatable, predictable, and easy to manage. Someone designed that version of you. And they did it so you would never become dangerous. What I'm about to give you doesn't make you a better person. It makes you an untouchable one. 7 lessons drawn from the coldest strategic mind in recorded history, Niccolo Machiavelli, reinterpreted not as political theory, but as psychological armor for the modern world. Once you absorb this, you will never see human interaction the same way. You will not be able to go back to the comfortable illusions. And if you're honest with yourself, you've already suspected something was wrong. This confirms it. There are no second chances at a first transformation. Pay attention. Most people move through life as open books. They share their pain publicly. They telegraph their intentions. They announce their ambitions before executing them and wonder why they get sabotaged every single time. They confuse transparency with integrity. They are not the same thing. The average person has been trained, socially, culturally, psychologically, to believe that vulnerability is strength. And in certain contexts, with certain people, that's partially true. But applied universally? It is a catastrophic strategic error. It hands your enemies a map to every weak point you have. Weak men wear their emotions on the outside. They react. They explain. They overjustify. They make themselves legible to anyone with predatory instincts, and then they act shocked when they're taken advantage of. The world is not made up of well-intentioned equals moving toward mutual harmony. It is made up of people at different levels of awareness, operating with different levels of intention. Some of those people will exploit everything you show them. Machiavelli didn't invent this reality. He was simply the first to write it down without apology. This is not cynicism. This is precision. 500 years ago, Machiavelli understood something that most self-help movements have spent centuries trying to undo. Power does not reward the deserving. It rewards the prepared. It rewards those who see clearly, move deliberately, and refuse to be governed by social performance. His work was not a guide for tyrants. It was a mirror held up to human nature, unflinching, unsentimental, and ruthlessly accurate. History has never once crowned the most emotionally available man in the room. It has crowned the most strategically disciplined one. What follows are 7 lessons distilled from that philosophy. Not for the faint. Not for those who still need the world's permission to become who they are. For those ready to operate on a different frequency entirely. After this, you will never beg. You will never over-explain. You will never let someone else's chaos become your emergency. You will become something most people only pretend to be, genuinely untouchable. Number 1. Master the discipline of concealment. The most powerful thing you can do in any room is reveal less than everyone expects. Most people cannot tolerate silence. They fill every gap with information about their plans, their fears, their motivations. They believe sharing creates connection. Sometimes it does. But it also creates leverage for anyone paying attention. Machiavelli wrote that the prince who reveals his thoughts too freely invites manipulation. The man who withholds strategically controls the frame. When people don't know what you're thinking, they have to guess. And when they're guessing, you are already ahead. Think about the last time you over-explain yourself. You defended a decision no one asked you to justify. You shared an emotion before the other person had earned access to it. And in doing so, you handed them the outline of your psychology. The reframe: silence is not weakness. Silence is selection. You are deciding, consciously, What information serves you and what information gives others tools to use against you. From this point forward, learn to speak with precision and withhold with confidence. Be impossible to fully read. Let people work for your depth. Most won't deserve it. And the few who do will respect you more for making them earn it. Write this down. In every interaction, you are either gaining information or giving it away. Decide which you're doing. Always. Number 2, never let them see the wound. Emotional reactivity is the most exploitable thing about you. And every time you display it publicly, you draw a target on yourself. This is not about suppressing emotion. Emotion is information. It tells you what matters, what's being threatened, what requires your attention. The error is not feeling, the error is broadcasting. Most people respond to pain by performing it. They post about it. They discuss it loudly. They signal their hurt to the very people who caused it, hoping to generate guilt or sympathy. What they generate instead is data. They show exactly which buttons, when pressed, produce a reaction. And manipulators catalog that, consciously or not. Think of the person who has had power over you. Likely not the loudest. Likely the one who remained composed while you spiraled. Who waited while you talked. Who revealed nothing while you revealed everything. Composure is dominance. Stillness communicates capacity. It signals that you have depth they cannot access. The social dynamic shifts entirely when you stop performing emotion for an audience that doesn't deserve your interiority. Someone insults you. You don't react. You file it. Someone betrays you. You don't collapse. You recalibrate. Someone tests you. You pass, not by proving yourself, but by refusing to be tested at all. Say it internally. I do not perform pain for people who created it. The wound exists. You tend to it privately. You emerge not healed necessarily, but composed. Strategic. Unreadable. That composure? It terrifies the people who expected to break you. Number 3. Position before you act. Impulsive people lose. Not always immediately, but eventually and completely. Machiavelli was obsessed with timing. He understood that the same action taken at the wrong moment produces failure, and taken at the right moment produces dominance. Most people confuse urgency with momentum. They move fast because they're anxious, not because the timing is right. They speak before they've thought. They decide before they've observed. The average person reacts to situations. The strategist creates them. Before you make any significant move, in relationships, in business, in confrontation, ask yourself, have I positioned myself correctly? Do I have enough information? Am I acting from clarity or from emotion? There's a scenario most people have lived through. You confront someone too early, before you have leverage, before you've observed their patterns, before you understand what they actually value. You reveal your hand. They adjust. Now you've lost any advantage you might have had, not because you were wrong, but because you were premature. The reframe. Patience is not passivity. Patience is accumulation. You are letting the situation develop, gathering information, building position, so that when you do act, it is surgical. Machiavelli understood that men who act from impulse are governed by fortune. Men who position first govern fortune. You are not in a hurry. You are building architecture. Let others scramble. You are already 10 moves ahead. Comment, I move in silence. Number 4, make dependency work in your favor. Here is a truth that social conditioning has trained you to ignore. Leverage exists in every relationship. You either understand it and navigate it consciously, or you pretend it doesn't exist and get managed by it without knowing. Machiavelli was direct about this. He described how a ruler makes himself indispensable, how he positions allies in ways that make their survival contingent on his. Not from cruelty, from strategy. In the modern context, this translates simply, the person who needs nothing holds power. The person who needs everything holds none. Most people make themselves desperate without realizing it. They attach too quickly in relationships. They reveal how much they need someone's approval before that person has given any indication of loyalty. They invest emotionally before the other party has demonstrated value. And then, when the dynamic shifts, when the other person senses the dependency, the relationship inverts entirely. Whoever needs less, leads. This is not a preference. It is a psychological law. Think about the relationship in your life where you have felt powerless. Examine it honestly. Was there a point where you needed the outcome more than they did? Where your desperation was visible? That moment, that exact moment, is where you lost the frame. The reframe is not to need nothing and feel nothing. It is to build yourself into someone who has options. Options create genuine, non-performative detachment. You're not pretending not to care. You actually have alternatives, and they know it. Build your skills. Build your resources. Build your network. Become someone whose absence costs more than their presence. And let that reality speak for itself without ever having to announce it. Burn this into your mind. Neediness is not love. It is a vulnerability being mistaken for depth. Number 5. Understand that perception is the actual battlefield. Reality matters far less than you think. What people believe about you, that is the territory you must learn to control. This is where most high-integrity, hard-working people get crushed. They believe that quality speaks for itself. That results will eventually speak for themselves. That if they just keep doing good work, staying honest, remaining consistent, the world will accurately perceive them. It won't. Not automatically. Not without narrative management. Machiavelli made this explicit. It is better to be both loved and feared, but if you must choose, choose feared. Not because cruelty wins, but because people act based on perception, not truth. And the man who controls how he is perceived controls how people act toward him. The average person lets their reputation be written by others. They opt out of self-presentation because it feels inauthentic. And in that absence, other people fill the space, often inaccurately, often harmfully. Consider, there is a version of you in every room you've ever left. That version continues to exist in the memories and narratives of every person present. You don't control it passively. You influence it actively, or you don't, and someone else does. This is not about performance or dishonesty. It is about intentionality. Walk into rooms with posture that communicates self-possession. Speak less and with more precision. Let your exits be as deliberate as your entrances. Create the experience of encountering someone who knows exactly who they are and requires no one's validation to remain that way. People cannot manipulate a man they cannot fully read. People cannot undermine a reputation they didn't create. If this resonates, subscribe. This channel is not for everyone. Number 6. Treat betrayal as intelligence, not injury. Every betrayal you have ever experienced was a data point. At the time, it felt like destruction. In retrospect, it was revelation. Machiavelli had no patience for sentimentality around loyalty. He understood that people act from self-interest, not always from malice, but almost always from self-interest. When someone betrays you, they are not malfunctioning. They are showing you exactly who they are when the cost of loyalty exceeds its benefit for them. That is information. And if you're still mourning it instead of studying it, you are wasting it. Most people respond to betrayal by collapsing into victimhood. They recount the story endlessly. They carry the wound as identity. They build their personality around having been wronged. And in doing so, they remain psychologically locked inside the moment of the betrayal, permanently. The weak man holds grudges because holding grudges makes him feel powerful without requiring him to actually become powerful. The strategic man catalogs the betrayal, extracts the lesson, adjusts his positioning, and moves. Not out of forgiveness necessarily, but out of refusal to be governed by someone else's worst moment. Here is the real lesson inside every betrayal. You had incomplete information about who that person was. Now you have complete information. Act accordingly. Recalibrate your inner circle. Audit your alliances. Stop granting access based on potential and start granting it based on demonstrated pattern. The person who betrayed you once already showed you the ceiling of their loyalty. That's not speculation anymore. That is data. Comment: I learn from betrayal. I am not broken by it. Detach from the emotional wound and extract the strategic insight. Every person who showed you who they really are did you a service, however painful. Now you know. Use it. Number 7. Execute the self that no longer serves you. This is the final lesson. And it is the hardest, because it asks you to kill something, not someone else. Yourself. Specifically, the version of yourself built for survival in an environment that no longer exists. You developed certain traits early in life for reasons that made sense then. People-pleasing because the environment was unpredictable and compliance was safe. Emotional suppression because displaying feelings created vulnerability. Over-explanation because you had to justify your existence to people who held power over you. Those adaptations were intelligent once. Now they are chains. Machiavelli wrote about the prince who clings to outdated strategy. The world shifts. Circumstances change. The man who refuses to adapt loses everything, not because he was weak, but because he was loyal to a version of himself that the present no longer requires. That version of you must die. Not metaphorically. Psychologically. The one who asks for permission. The one who waits to be chosen. The one who shrinks in rooms where he should dominate. The one who explains himself to people who will never understand him and wouldn't if he explained forever. Execute it. Deliberately. With full awareness of what you are doing and why. The rebirth is not a sudden event. It is a decision made now and then remade every morning. It is choosing strategic silence over compulsive explanation. Choosing composed positioning over reactive emotion. Choosing to move only when the timing is yours to control. Choosing to build yourself into someone who requires no audience for their confidence. There is a version of you that has been waiting, underneath all the conditioning, the approval-seeking, the performance of smallness, a version that already knows it is capable of more than it has been permitted to express. You stop asking for permission now. Not because you've arrived. Because you've decided. The old architecture burns. You are not mourning it. You built it for survival. Now you are building for power. The difference is everything. Say it with me. I am not who I was. I am not yet what I will be. But I am no longer available for the version of life that required me to stay small. This is what Machiavelli understood that sentimentalists could never accept. The world responds to what you project. Project uncertainty, and it gives you chaos. Project strength, and it gives you space. Project indifference, and it gives you leverage. Project absolute clarity about who you are and what you will and will not tolerate, and it gives you something most people never find: sovereignty. Not dominance over others. Dominance over yourself. 7 lessons. 1 outcome. A psychology so composed, so deliberate, so strategically structured that manipulation finds no surface to grip. Approval becomes irrelevant. Betrayal becomes education. Silence becomes your greatest weapon. You are not untouchable because you feel nothing. You are untouchable because what you feel no longer controls what you do. The old version is gone. Stop grieving it. It wasn't protecting you anyway. Now move. In silence. In power. On your terms.